Um, Thank you. Okay. So, Eliezer, will you take us through the chazaras of Dalet Beis?
Okay. Dalit Hey.
Dalet
Just
Beis.
I'm sorry?
Beis. With the chazaras Dalet Beis.
Dalit base. I thought you said hey, but I know I'm on base. Yeah. Okay. We may insulate hot food with pelts, and we may move them with wool shearings, but we may not move them. What
But we
should
may not, move the wool shearings themselves. That is.
That's right. What should we do? He removes the lid and they fall. Reb Elazar, Reb Azariah says he tilts the box on its side and removes the food, lest he remove the pot and be unable to replace it. But the Chachamim say he may remove it and replace it. If he did not cover it when it was yet dry day, he may not cover it after dark. If he covered it and it became uncovered, he may cover it. One may fill a bottle and place it under a cushion or under a bolster. Okay, hey Aleph. With what may an animal go out and what may he not go out? A camel may go out with a curb, a dromedary with a nose ring, a Libyan ass with a bit, a horse with a neck chain, and all that wear a neck chain may go out with a neck chain, and may be pulled with a neck chain, and may we sprinkle upon them and immerse them in their place. A donkey may go out with a saddlecloth when it is tied to it. Rams may go out strapped. Ewes may go out exposed, tied, or covered up, and she-goats may go out with their udders tied. Reb Yossi forbids all of them except the ewes covered up. Reb Yudah says she-goats may go out with their udders tied up to dry up, but not for the milk. Didn't we have another Mishnah that talked about tying up the animals so they wouldn't give milk or something? We had something like that.
That was this one that we did yesterday.
There wasn't another one that we had.
Tying up so that they don't give milk. I'm not sure. I don't. Nothing jumps to my mind.
Okay.
Okay.
Daled Gimel.
Okay, that's me. Bama Eina Yotza. So we said that an animal, a person is also commanded to not make its animal do work. If the animal does work voluntarily, that's the animal's problem. But a person can't load up the animal in a Rishus Hayachid and then let it walk out into the Rishus Harabim. Okay, so what are the things that? So we just gave a list of the things that are considered clothing or jewelry for an animal. And now the things that it can't go out in. So lo yetzei gamal b'mitatelis. It can't go out with a sort of a blanket or a cushion bird, which gets tied under its tail, between its hump and its tail. So that the idea is that the strap that's under the tail shouldn't harm its flesh. The problem here is not that so the reason for this is because it's like a cushioning, but it's not very tight, and the concern is that it might fall out. And it's a common thing for it to fall out, and then the owner is going to pick it up in the Rishus Harabim and carry it back to the animal, and that's going to be a problem. Okay. Lo akud v'lo ragul. Also, you can't take a camel out with its legs tied together. Now, camels can move pretty fast if they're running, so you might want to prevent the camel from moving too fast in Rishus Harabim, and he does that by tying the legs together. Akud means that the front leg is tied to the back leg, and ragul means that the two back legs are so that one of the back legs is tied up, so that it's so the camel is effectively walking on three legs and has to hobble along, which of course slows it down. So all of these ropes, these are things that it's not considered clothing for the camel. It's not considered any benefit to the camel, and therefore taking those straps that are holding it together is making the animal walk carry something, and it's a load into the Rishus Harabim. And the same thing goes for all other animals. Lo yikshor gemalim zeh bezeh v'yimshoch. He also can't make a train of camels. So like have one's nose tied to the other one's tail, etc., and make a whole train of them, and then he carries them out because all of those ropes over there are considered a masoy. Or no, I beg your pardon. It's not because they're considered a masoy. It's in order that he shouldn't give the impression that he's driving all of these animals to the market, because that looks like a very commercial way of leading camels around.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what he can do is that he can take the strap from each of these camels. Each of these camels is allowed to have one rope coming from it so that he can lead it by, and he can take them all in one hand and lead them all together. So it's not the most efficient way of doing it, but that way it's a siman to the world that he's just like, taking them from one place to another. That he and this is not a commercial activity that he's taking the camels to market. Okay, just that he's not allowed to fold the ropes around his hand. Now, this is an interesting little halacha that gets sneaked in at the end over here because it's got absolutely nothing to do with Shabbos. That folding of the ropes around his hand is because the ropes were frequently made out of shatnez.
Oh.
So if he wraps it around his hand, then he's getting a personal benefit from having it wrapped around his hand, and that, as we learned in Maseches Kilayim, if he's just holding it, that's okay. But if he's getting the benefit of having it wrapped around his hand, that's an Isur Kilayim. Okay, Mishna Daled, Ein Chamor Yotze B'Mardas. The Mardas is the kind of a blanket that they put over the donkey's body. Okay, bisman she'ena keshurlo, if it's not tied onto him. Again, that's the same reason as we had before, that it might fall off and the owner will come to carry it. Velo bezug. A zug is a bell, so you can't carry it out with a bell around its neck. Even though the bell is stuffed with whatever cloths to make sure that the clapper doesn't make a noise. Okay, why is this? Because it looks like he's taking it to market to sell it. The bell apparently is a tachshit that makes donkey look good in the market. I'm not sure why that particularly looks like it's a market activity, but that's what Kahati says. The ladder around its neck is actually, when you see that, think about the dog that's been to the vet and they put that cone around its head so it doesn't worry at the wound. So it's the same sort of thing over here on the donkey, is that if the donkey has a cut, has some sort of wound, that's they put this thing that's called the sulam. It's not literally a ladder; it just has the shape of a ladder that they put around it in order to prevent the donkey from worrying at some sort of wound on its body. But so that's not considered clothing for the donkey, and it can't go out into Rosh Hashanah carrying that. The lower bitsura shibaraglo, and also not with the strap on its legs. Lower bitsura shibaraglo, he says, so that if the donkey's legs rub against each other when it's walking, they strap they tie a wide strap of leather around its legs in order to prevent chafing. Which also is not considered a legitimate thing to carry out into the Rosh Hashanah. So chickens, whether male or female, can't go out with threads or straps between their legs. Now we're switching. This is no longer chickens. We're now talking about male sheep with their big fat tails. I think nowadays farmers dock those tails on a regular basis, just because they just kind of get in the way.
Right.
and they don't have, and there's no mizbeach that you can put this nice fatty tail on. So I think that farmers just routinely dock the tails of their sheep. Okay, but if you have a sheep that's got this large tail, sometimes what they would do in the times of the Mishnah was make a little cart underneath it in order to prevent it from getting from dragging on the ground and from getting thorns and whatever else caught in it. But that little cart that they put in the back, that can't go out into the Rishos Rabbim on Shabbos. The ewes should not go out chanunos. The Gemara explains that there's a certain kind of wood which is called chanun
It says there's
or
a certain kind
yachnun.
of tree, a certain kind of tree called what is it? Chanun?
Chanun, yeah.
Yeah, chanun.
Okay, and they bring toothpicks from it in order to put it into the sheep's nose. And apparently, it makes it sneeze, and it sneezes out the parasitic worms that have climbed up its nose. So it's a kind of a treatment. But the males don't need it. So why does it specifically talk about the females? Because the males don't need this kind of treatment, because the males are routinely headbutting each other, and the jolting prevents the parasites from taking up residence in their sinuses. Okay, so that's those little toothpicks that they insert up the noses of the female sheep it can't go out during into the Rishos Harabim. A calf cannot go out with a gimon. That is a small yoke that they put on its neck in order to get it used to bending its head and making it easier to make it work later. Okay. And a cow shouldn't go out with a hedgehog skin. I mean, you put a hedgehog skin on your cow, right? Okay. So what's the idea with the hedgehog skin is that they would tie it to the cow's udders, so that other creatures don't try and drink the milk from the udders if it's kind of dripping out.
Actually, it says leeches. Actually, it says leeches. To prevent leeches from sucking out the milk. Yeah.
So I suppose if the cow walks through a river or something like that. Okay. And also a strap between its horns is not considered really a tachshit, and it should not be allowed to take a strap from between its horns into the Rishos Harabim. Okay, and then comments that Parasoshal Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Haisayotza Birtzua Sheben Karnea Shelo Birtzon Chachamim. But this comes up in a few parts of this particular incident is mentioned in a number of different Mishnayos. I think it's mentioned in Adios as well. That Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah's cow was permitted to go out on Shabbos using in the strap, and the Chachamim were not happy about this, to the extent that it wasn't actually even his cow; it was his neighbor's cow. But because he didn't protest, the Chachamim said, "Why aren't you doing anything about this?" And they basically labeled this cow as his cow because he didn't protest.
It's just that there's something here in the Yerushalmi says that this wood chip or whatever they use for the cow for not to be able to nurse. It says it was done to prevent the cow from nursing its own calf. That sounds unusual. Wouldn't the cow nurse its own calf?
Why? So read more about that, because that's news to me.
This is we're talking about the hedgehog skin, which had the little like needles and stuff. So it says, according to the Yerushalmi, this was done to prevent the cow from nursing its own calf.
That's interesting. I wonder why you would do that. Okay.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I thought that's what they were there for, to really, to nurse their own calf.
Yeah.
Maybe if the calf is big enough, is the milk for the human, or earlier I saw where you're tying up the udders is to make the animal fertile again. So maybe it's something like that.
Could be, yeah. Okay.
All right.
All right, Perek Vav. Nice little segue. We've just been talking about the takshitim of behemoths. Now we can talk about the takshitim of women. The Kahati explains that the juxtaposition is intentional because animals tend to get up earlier in the morning and go out earlier than women do, who are ladies of leisure, especially on Shabbos. So now having concerned ourselves with what animals can go out wearing, we can now go back to our women folk and tell them what they can.
I see somewhat of a little smile on your face, like a little, like you.
Me? I didn't dream of it. Get a frying pan on my head. Okay. B'mei isha yotza u'b'ma eina yotza. What can a woman go out with and what can she not? Lo tete isha lo b'chutei tzemer. Now, just as a preface to this Mishnah, this Mishnah is going to be listing all the things that have an issur d'rabbanan to take out. Okay, because they are actually things that are considered clothing, but Chachamim said not to wear them because there's a good chance that she'll take them out in the Rosh Hashanah and carry them, or that they'll for whatever reason. So the chutei tzemer, the woolen threads that she's got in her hair, lo b'chutei pishtan, or the chutei, or whether it's a wool or linen, lo b'tzuas sheberosha, or the straps are on her head that she shouldn't. Those are things that are woven into her hair. If she so those things are actually connected, that she can't tovel in them unless she loosens them. So let's say we've got a woman here she's got some sort of tichel on, and she's got these straps underneath them in her hair. Now, if she has to go to mikveh, then she has to loosen those straps in order to go to the mikveh. And the concern is that now that she's loosened them, they're going to fall out, and she's going to wind up carrying them in the Rosh Hashanah on the way back from mikveh. So they just said, blanket rule: don't wear these things on Shabbos because if you had to go to mikveh, you would have to take them out, and you might not put them back in tightly, and so don't do them. Okay. But lo b'totefes, this totefes is a kind of a head ornament, which is tied to a forehead, very much like your tefillin, sort of tied up there. V'lo b'sanbutin bisman she'enan tefurim, and the sanbutin is these are ribbons that come down from the head over the cheeks. So the poor women would make these colorful ribbons, and the rich women would make them out of silver and gold. Okay, and because of their chashivas, because they look so pretty, Chachamim have a fear that maybe she's going to take them off and show them to a friend in the Rosh Hashanah, and they forget themselves and carry them daled amas in Rosh Hashanah. Unless it's such an if that's only if they're not sewn into her, then if they're not sewn into her tichel, because if they're sewn into the tichel, then there's no problem, right, because she's not going to take that off in the Rosh Hashanah.
It's interesting that you mentioned that it compared it to tefillin, because the English word, if you read an English siddur, they use the word frontlet for frontlet.
Yeah, well, that's why I definitely chose that, because in the Hebrew it's totefes.
Right, because
same word.
In English it says here frontlet also, so it's the same. Yeah. It's the same thing, but it's interesting they compared that.
That was it was deliberate,
right?
It was, because the word evoked the word that's used in the Torah for tefillin. Okay, now the kabul, that's a kind of a head covering, which is made of wool, and it's worn underneath the totefes. Right, in order to really, so that it's not hard, so it's soft on her forehead, and sometimes she would go out just with this with this kavul by itself, without the totefes, again, this why can't you go out into the into the Rishus Harabim with these things? There was a couple, but this is only talking about the Kabul according to Kahati. Why does it have to say Lirishas Harabim? Because the Yotzai obviously is talking about the Rishas Harabim. So why does it have to mention Lirishas Harabim over here? Kahati says that according to some Mefarshim, this is specifically talking about the Kabul. That in this case, a woman can't go into the Rishas Harabim, but she can go out into a Chatzer with this. But all the other things that are mentioned about the Chacham said that she can't even go into a Chatzer wearing these things because she might come to get used to wearing them, and she'll also go out into the Rishas Harabim. And why is this not considered Gezerah LeGezerah? Because it's a Gezerah, it's one Gezerah that Chachamim said that she should not wear these things on Shabbos at all, not in a Chatzer, not in the Rishas Harabim. Okay, but with the Kabul, they permitted her to go out in the Chatzer so that she shouldn't have all of her tachshitim, all of her jewelry, her pretty things prohibited to her even in the Chatzer. Okay, and that's it'll make her upset and she won't look nice for her husband. Other Mefarshim say that the Rishus Harabim is talking about everything that we're saying over here. That Chacham only said that she can't take them out into the Rishus Harabim, the Gezerah that she shouldn't carry it for Amas. So that's the Rambam versus the first parish was Rashi and the second one is Rambam. So according to Rambam, the woman would be permitted to wear all of these things inside the Chatzer, where Rashi says only the kavul is permitted to be worn inside the Chatzer. Okay. The Ir Shel Zahav, that's another ornament, another piece of jewelry, which is gold in the shape of the city of Yerushalayim. And that's probably the origin. I guess Naomi Shemer had something like this in mind when she was inspired to write Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, because this is a Yerushalayim Shel Zahav. Ir Shel Zahav. V'lo b'katla. A katla is a necklace. Nizamim are rings. These are nose rings, dafka. Interesting that in the time of the Mishna, it seems to be pretty cool about the fact that women were wearing nose rings. In today's, Frum society, at least in Haredi society, nose rings are like a sign of having gone off the derech. But clearly in the Mishnah, that was the fashion, because it's all over the place, and in the Chumash as well. It was obviously a very common thing. Nowadays, that's not the fashion in Haredi society.
Did Eliezer give a nose ring to Rivka? Is that one of the things he gave?
Yes,
right.
Absolutely. It's very good. So dafka nose rings she's not allowed to go out into Rishus Harabim wearing, but earrings are fine. Okay, and she shouldn't go out wearing a ring that doesn't have a seal on it. Now, that's not saying that if it does have a seal, she's allowed to go in it, because if we're going to learn in the next Mishnah tomorrow, if it does have a seal on it, that's a chiyuv d'oraisa, because that's not a takshit, that's now a kli. Mm-hmm. Okay, and the same thing goes for lo b'machat she'en nekuba, a needle that has no hole in it. Right, because that can still be a takshit, but there's still a concern that you're going to take it out in the Rishus Harabim. If it does have a hole in it, then that's a kli, and walking out into the Rishus Harabim with it makes you chayav d'oraisa. And our Mishnah is dealing with d'rabbanans. So in all of the cases of our Mishnah, if she actually did go out wearing any of these things, there's no chiyuv. It's a d'rabbanan, and there's no chiyuv chatas for violating a d'rabbanan. Okay. Chazaras, Aleph Hey. Riley, you're kind of out of the loop of these ones. So Eliezer, I think we're going to just carry on with you doing the Chazaras in English.
Shabbos,
and
okay.
Yeah.
Aleph Hey.
I do have English, so if he needs a break, I can jump in.
Sure. Okay, great. That'll be good. All right, so the Chazara is at Aleph Hay. Which one of you is going to take it?
Oh, I thought Riley was. You want to do it, Riley? You want me to do it?
Sure, I can do it.
Okay.
Myself unmuted here. Okay, Olive Hay. Beis Shammai says one may only soak dry ink in water and dry plants. Well, let's see.
Not no. But one may only say you're right. I beg your pardon.
I'm
Yes, you're right.
I've got a lot of commentary mixed in here. So the bold words just say Beis Shammai says one may only soak ink and dyes and vetch.
Yeah, vegetables. It's a cashenim is a kind of a vegetable which is usually only animal fodder.
If there's sufficient time for them to soak, for their designated purpose while it's still day. This is before Shabbat begins, and their continued soaking on Shabbat will have no effect. And Beis Hillel permits doing that.
Right. So that, by the way, is a consistency between. We didn't actually discuss this because I was away while we were learning these for the first time. But here, there's a consistent shita between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. Is that Beis Hillel are okay with you doing melachas before Shabbos, where you start the melacha before Shabbos and the melacha continues by itself into Shabbos. Whereas Beis Shammai say the melacha must be complete before Shabbos. Okay, and we'll see. Did we see more of this yesterday? No, this will be more of this, more of the same to come in the coming Mishnahs. Mishnah Vav. Go ahead, Eliezer.
Beit Shammai says we may not place bundles of flax into the oven unless there is sufficient time for them to become heated while it is yet day. Nor may we place wood into the vat unless there is sufficient time for it to absorb the color. Beis Hillel permits these sacks. Beit Shammai says we may not spread snares for beasts, birds, or fish unless there is sufficient time to be captured while it's yet day, and Beis Hillel permits this. Beis Shammai says we may not sell to a Gentile, nor help him load or lift a load upon him, unless there is sufficient time for him to reach a nearby place. Beis Hillel permits these acts.
So again, that's all the same machlok as Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai, just showing different applications of their different shitot.
Oh, he helps the goy load the items on his place, and the goy must be at the place that he's supposed to be at before Shabbos starts.
That's according to Beis Shammai, that he has to be able to reach that place so that you're not actually being active in the goy being Chalal Shabbos. Even Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel say, what do we care? The goy is allowed to violate Shabbos. Again, it's the act that's carrying on into Shabbos from the Jew that's helping him, but that's of no concern to us as Beis Hillel next.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Challah
Gimel Yud.
If one takes leaven from wheaten dough and puts it in a rice dough, if it has the taste of cereal, it's liable to challah. But if not, it is exempt. If so, why did they say Tevel renders forbidden any quantity of its own kind, but of a different kind it imparts flavor?
If it imparts flavor, yeah.
Right. Likewise, if let me see. Likewise, right. No, that's it. Okay, that was the commentary.
Okay. Dalet Aleph. Riley, are you with us?
I think so. Two women who made separate doughs from two separate calves, and these doughs touched one another, even if they are of the same species, they are exempt from challah.
The point being that challah, the minimum shear for challah is a kav and a quarter. So if they've only got, so if each one's got a kav, then each one isn't chayav in challah, even if they touch each other while they're busy baking their separate doughs, because they're two separate owners.
Mm-hmm. It's still too little.
Yeah.
When they belong to one woman, if one species comes into contact with the same, they are subject to challah. So that's, you've got two calves of one type of dough, they touch each other.
So now you've got two calves, and that's chayav.
If different species, they are exempt because it's not one thing; they're two separate things still.
Which is one kind with like kind. Wheat does not combine with any except with spelt, and barley combines with all except with wheat. Reb Nochanan ben Nuri says the other kinds combine with one another.
Okay. Shli'is. Shvi'is Hey Vav.
Okay. These are the implements which a craftsman may not sell in the seventh year: a plow and all of its implements, a yoke, a winnowing fan, and a pickaxe. But he may sell a sickle used by hand, a scythe, and a cart with all of its implements. This is the general principle. Any tools designed for work involving a transgression in the seventh year is prohibited, but if for a forbidden and permissible purpose, it may be sold. So something that you can use for another purpose.
So if it's ambiguous, then it's fine. But if it's definitely going to be used for malacha, then you can't sell that during Shemitah.
The potter may sell 5 oil jars and 15 wine jars, for this is the usual amount one collects from ownerless property. If he brought more than this, it is permitted. And if he may sell to a non-Jew in Eretz Yisrael and to a Jew outside Eretz Yisrael.
Okay. The Shammai says one may not sell him a plowing cow in the seventh year, but Beis Hillel permits it, since he may slaughter it to eat it. One may sell him produce even at sowing time, and one may lend him a se'ah measure, even though he knows that he has a threshing floor. And this hymn that we're talking about is
about somebody who's suspected of violating Shvi'is.
Okay. One may exchange coins for him, even though he knows that he has workers. But all of these things, if he expresses they'll be used for the unlawful purpose, then they're forbidden.
Right. So you don't have to ask the guy, hang on a second, are you going to be paying your workers to be doing Asr Malacha? You don't have to ask the question. There are plenty of legitimate reasons why a person might want change for his money. You don't have to ask. But
He comes
if he tells
you saved me here. I got to pay my workers. Thanks for changing this money.
And then you got to say, no, I'm sorry, I can't help you there. Okay.
Solid. If one sprinkles from a public window and he enters...
Are you with us, Riley? We're in Para.
Sorry.
Para?
You're in Para, Yud Beis Daled.
No, that's Peah, almost.
Para, we're in Taros. Seder Taros.
If is Para. Sorry, Para what?
Yud Beis Daled.
Yud Beis Daled. Okay, I'm there.
If one sprinkles from a public window and he entered the temple and the water was found to be invalid, he is exempt. From a private window and he enters the temple and the water was found to be invalid, he is liable. But the Kohen Gadol, whether from a private window or public window, is exempt, since the Kohen Gadol is not liable for temple entry. Though it has, they would slip in front of a public window and would tread there without restraint, since they said, Katas water which has performed its task does not contaminate.
Right. So the point here being that in a Safek Tumah B'Rishus HaYachid is Tameh, but in Rishus Harabim is Tahor. So when a person is sprinkled in the Rishus Harabim, that's the safest place to be, because he's not held liable for any issues that come about with his sprinkling. And once the water has been used for its purpose, normally the meichatas, if you touch it for any purpose other than the sprinkling, then the person actually himself becomes tameh. But once it's been used, even if it starts pooling on the floor and people are walking in it and slipping in it and whatever, that water that came from the meichatas it's done its maaseh. It's now just regular water, and there's no and we don't have to be concerned about people becoming tameh from it.
Are you saying that when they would sprinkle someone's tameh, with the meikatas, they would do it in a rabin? They would do it.
That's the best place to do it, is in the Rishus Harabim. It doesn't have to be, but it prevents the situation described in the Mishna from happening, where suddenly where later you discover that the water was pasul, and now the person who went into the mikdash is chayav for going into the mikdash tameh.
That's interesting, because I thought that if the person was tameh, that it was like a private ceremony. Like you don't have to tell everybody the guy's tameh. What do you have to tell everybody? Embarrass the guy?
Well, there's nothing embarrassing about being tameh. It means that you went to a funeral. Yeah. There's nothing.
Right.
So
I never thought of it that way. For some reason, I
Hmm.
just never thought. I thought it was like
so they
No,
had like
it's a,
a spot that you would walk, and there'd be a window, and you'd get sprinkled through the window.
yeah, that's kind of that seems like a practical solution. Is that all that the Rav of the town would have his little jar of paraduma water, and he would say, okay, between 10 and 11 this morning, I'm going to be sprinkling anyone who needs to be sprinkled today. So people
Oh
would
shoot,
line
I
up and walk.
forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the person walking who got sprinkled upon, who's tahor, he now becomes tameh. Is that what you said?
No, no.
I thought you said that.
No. If a person is tahor and they get sprinkled, they don't become tame from it. Um, but because that's got the intention of sprinkling. But
Right.
if for example if somebody picks up the jar of paraduma water, because it's in the wrong position and he wants to use the space for something else, so he wants to put it somewhere else convenient, then he puts it down and he himself becomes tame because he moved it for a purpose other than sprinkling.
Okay. I got it. Okay. All right. Okay.
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 A clean person may hold in the corner of his garment an unclean axe and sprinkle upon it. And even though there is on it enough water for a sprinkling, he remains clean. On it, I'm not sure what we're talking about. On his garment?
Yes, there's enough water left on so they sprinkled the axe.
Yeah.
So the axe became tame. They sprinkled it, and there's still enough water on it that you could actually pick it up and sprinkle it again. But the person who's carrying it doesn't become tame from that because the water has been used. There's no
So
it's lost its potency completely. There's no tumor involved in carrying it anymore.
So he protects his hand from the initial sprinkling with his cloak.
No,
He
he's
sprinkles the
protecting
axe
he's protecting his hand from the axe
from the axe. Oh, I see. And
because
then he sprinkles
wants
the axe.
he wants to stay tahor. So if a person touches a kli that's tame mace, then he's going to become tame as well.
Mhm.
Okay, so he wants to be careful. So he takes a piece of cloth and he holds the axe in that, and that's fine.
He sprinkles it, then he lifts it up, or whatever the water drips on him. He's okay.
Yes, then he's still okay.
Okay. How much water is necessary for a sprinkling? Sufficient for the tops of the buds to be dipped and for the sprinkling to be performed. So just a small, it sounds like a very small amount.
Yeah.
Rabbi Yehuda ruled they are regarded as though they were on a hyssop of brass.
Which means, so what does it mean that it's on a hyssop brass that it doesn't absorb? Because a normal hyssop is going to absorb some of the water into the buds, and then it's not going to come out. So that you require a much larger amount of water to be called kedei hazaya, whereas Rabbi Yehuda says even less because if it's enough that the hyssop was made of brass and it wouldn't absorb anything and everything on the surface would come out, then it would be considered kedei hazaya, which makes the person who carries it chayav. It makes the person who carries it tameh. Okay, Vav?
If one sprinkles with tameh hyssop, if it contains an egg's volume, the water is invalidated and his sprinkling is invalid. If it does not contain an egg's volume, the water is valid, and the sprinkling is invalid, and it contaminates its fellow, and its fellow contaminates its fellow, even if there are 100.
Okay, so that's it in tumah that the first of all, your minimum shear to convey tumah from one foodstuff to another is a beitza. So if your hyssop is less than a beitza, then it's not going to then the water stays. The water is still tahor because it couldn't transmit the tumah, but you can't be mazeh. You can't do the sprinkling with a tameh hyssop. That's just one of the halachas, and it's metameh es chavero. The electric transmission of tumah from the azov. So this is only talking about if it does have the kabeitza. So because you've got the situation of a liquid, the liquid, Chazal always made the liquid go up to a rishon, and it'll be metame the hyssop to a sheni, which then is metame the liquid to a rishon again, and next one to a sheni. So it carries on ad infinitum. Okay, Zavachim Yud Gimel
I have a
Dalet.
tame animal here, so I got to get rid of this guy.
Okay, goodbye, Tame animal.
He'll be back. Okay, we are Dalet. Yud
Yeah,
Gimel Dalet.
Zavachim Yud Gimel Dalet.
Whether they were offerings which were fit or offerings which were unfit, whose invalidation was in the holy, if one offered them up outside the temple, he's liable. One who offers up an olive's volume of an olah offering and the sacrificial parts outside the temple is liable. The chametz, the frankincense, the incense, the mincha offering of Kohanim, the mincha offering of the anointed Kohen, and the libation of mincha offering, if one offered up an olive's volume of one of them outside, he's liable. But Elazar exempts unless he offers up all of it. If one offered up any of these inside the temple but left over an olive's volume and offered up outside the temple, he is liable. For any of these become diminished even slightly and one offered them up outside the temple, he is not liable.
This was just to bring into context here. We're talking about the issue of sacrificing things outside the temple. Sacrifices may only be brought inside the temple. Putting them on the mizbeach outside the temple makes you chayav. This is even when you're sacrificing it to Hashem. We're not talking about a Zorah here.
Don't touch that.
I'm lost. Sorry. What
Okay,
parak in Mishnah?
We're in Perek Yud Gimel, and we're in Zvachim. Zvachim is in Seder Kodshim.
I'm in Zavachim. It's just the
Yud Gimel
Perek,
and Mishnah Hay.
Mishnah.
Yeah, before I eat you.
Hey.
Not you. I meant the cat.
Okay. Hey, one who sacrifices sacrificial meat which is eaten. I'm just going to read with the commentary because it's too complicated to pick out the words. One who sacrifices sacrificial meat which is eaten in sacrificial portions, those that are to be burned, outside the courtyard is liable for the sacrifice of the sacrificial portions, but he is not liable for sacrificing the meat. If there is a meal offering from which a handful was not removed, and one sacrificed it outside the courtyard, he is exempt, because until the handful is actually removed, it's not fit to be burned on the altar. But if a priest took a handful from it and then returned its handful into the remainder of the meal offering, so he took out and put back in, and one sacrificed the entire mixture outside the courtyard, he is liable.
Right, because the handful is included in that pile. So therefore, somewhere inside there, he was chayav.
Yep.
Okay. The chametz and the frankincense, which one offered up, one of them outside the temple, he's liable. But Elazar exempts from liability until he offers up the second one. If he offered up the second one within the temple and the other outside, it's liable. The 2 spoonfuls of frankincense which one offered up of one of them outside the temple, he is liable. But Elazar exempts from liability until he offers up the second spoonful. If he offered up 1 spoonful within and the other outside, he's liable. If one throws some of the blood outside the temple, he's liable. Reb Elazar says even one who pours the water of the festival on the festival outside the temple is liable. And Reb Nehemiah says if one offered up the remaining of the blood outside the temple, he is liable. Why would one throw the blood outside the temple? I mean, it has to be thrown right there. It's
Right, but we're talking in theory over here that the chiyuv of bringing up of doing hakava b'chutz is applicable to the blood, is applicable to the slaughtering, is applicable to all of the other things that normally go on the mizbeach. So if they normally go on the mizbeach inside and you do it on the mizbeach outside, that's chayav. Okay, we're in Seder Nashim, Maseches Nedarim, Perek Gimel, Mishnah Zayin.
One who makes a neder prohibiting those who see the sun is forbidden to benefit even from the blind, but he referred only to those visible to the sun.
Not finding it, sorry.
This is Nedarim.
Nedarim now Gimel Ches.
Oh, Nedarim. Yeah, go on without me. Sorry, I'll be there in a second.
Eliezer, you want to take the Ches?
One who makes a neder prohibiting dark-headed people is forbidden to benefit from bald people and hoary-haired people, um, but he is permitted to benefit from women and children, since only adult men are called dark-headed. And want me to do the last, or
Let's see. I think I'm almost there. What's the
Tes.
Eric,
Mishna,
Tes?
Gimel Tes, yeah.
Gimel Tes. Aha. One who takes a vow not to derive benefit from those that are born is permitted to derive benefit from those who will be born after the time of the vow.
Mhm.
But if one takes a vow not to derive benefit from those who will be born, he is also prohibited from deriving benefit from those that are already born at the time of the vow. Rabbi Meir permits even from those that are already born at the time of the vow, because he holds that one taking the vow was precise. He said the will be born, not those that are already born. The rabbis say he intended to include only one whose nature is to be born. Therefore, it includes everybody.
Yeah, it's amazing to think like we're in a culture where everything you do is like bli neder, and we've got a whole masechta of people who are making nadarim. Yeah, I'm gonna take a neder from you because
From
I guess they
anyone
have-
who will be born.
yeah, that's like
I guess from a
they,
particular person.
I think they were a lot more charif in those days than we are now.
wow.
Okay,
Oh,
gents.
O'Reilly, it's good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you. It's very good. Wow.
Okay, guys, guten Chodesh.
Guten Kodesh,
Kodesh.
everybody. Have a great day.
You too.
Enjoy.
Goodbye.